the Labour Party. On Friday, it came out for Rebecca Long-Bailey as its preferred candidate as Leader of the Opposition. Its General Secretary, himself a Long-Bailey fan, Len McCluskey, joins me now. Welcome, Mr McCluskey.
Good morning.
Immediately after that shattering election defeat, I asked John McDonnell if he took personal responsibility for some of that. You were a great supporter of the previous Labour leadership. Do you take some responsibility for the defeat?
Well, I think all of us have to take responsibility. The fact of the matter is that, unfortunately, Labour spent 2 years, 18 months sliding into being perceived as a Remain party. Now, Jeremy Corbyn was under a lot of pressure from people saying he should do that. He was under pressure from people like me saying there would be consequences in our heartlands if he did that. At the end of the day, a policy was arrived at and we suffered the consequences of that.
But you were one of those calling for that election to go ahead. You said we may have to have a general election first, before Brexit was resolved. Tony Blair said that was going to be a huge elephant trap for the Labour Party, and the Labour Party solemnly walked straight into the trap and fell over.
Oh, I think it was a trap, and to be honest, I would have preferred to have had Brexit resolved much earlier. In my opinion, Theresa May's Brexit probably provided enough issues to try and reach a view and try and reach a compromise.
But at the
fact of the matter was, once the SNP and the Liberal Democrats had made it clear that they were going to support the government, then Labour was committed to a general election.
But we talked back in the summer of the year, long before all of this, and you said to me, firstly, I'd like a public vote of a general election, and then go on. So, in fact, you were also going for a general election before any other referendum or any other choice. So
yes, because
you were heading to the elephant trap.
I knew that I'd have preferred the election back in the summer for sure, because Labour was slipping more and more into being perceived as a Remain party, and I knew that was dangerous in our heartlands. I made that clear in a number of articles I wrote, and of course in private discussions with the leadership.
And you wrote an article just after the election which you said that anti-Semitism and Labour's failure to apologise for it was also part of the reason for the defeat. Do you hold by that?
Of course, we never handled the anti-Semitism issue correctly. We should have done things quicker. And again, you pay the consequences.
Because you yourself seem to accuse people who were talking about anti-Semitism before all of this of being anti-Jeremy Corbyn, fundamentally. You said the mood music that was created by people trying to undermine Jeremy Corbyn was part of the anti-Semitism problem. And in response to the Jewish Labour movement, you said the truth underlying this is that they don't actually support Jeremy Corbyn. So to a lot of people, it sounded like you were trying to minimise the anti-Semitism problem in the party.
It's not a question of minimising. I'm absolutely convinced that there were those individuals who opposed Jeremy Corbyn's election right from the beginning, used the anti-Semitism issue, which I think is quite despicable that they did this, such an important subject. They used it to undermine Corbyn, there's no doubt about that. The Jewish Labour movement, of course, I had met with the Jewish Labour movement and offered them continued dialogue with Unite. We want to work with JLM, we want to work with JVL, the Jewish Voice for Labour. And it was very evident, I asked them the question, would it be true to say that the majority of JLM members would not want Jeremy Corbyn as leader of the Labour Party? And they were honest enough to say yes. So the issue was not well handled. It provided ammunition for Corbyn's enemies who used it. Lots of people were genuinely concerned. I have no problem with that. But there were others who were disingenuous.
It doesn't sound like a huge apology, if I may say so, Len
Apology
McCluskey.
for what? I'm on record of apologising if any member of the Jewish community was hurt by what was happening in the Labour Party. I'm also on record as saying every single anti-Semite in the Labour Party needs to be kicked out. I've fought against anti-Semitism, and I mean physically on the streets when I was younger, all my life.
Going forward, your party executive has come out very strongly for Rebecca Long-Bailey and Richard Bergen. That happened on Friday. And way before that, the biggest group on the executive, the United Left, had come out in exactly the same way, which led a lot of people to think that this was basically a stitch-up. And Emily Thornberry said she wasn't even going to ask for the union support because she knew it was already a done deal.
Yeah, I think it was completely wrong of a small group of people to make that decision and to publicise it. The reality is, of course, that the executive is the supreme making body of our union, the only body of our union, and they came to that meeting, I know, with an open mind. I don't think they were influenced by this small cabal of individuals who met somewhere and came out with a statement. I think it was wrong. And it was an open discussion. The candidates were first class, excellent candidates. Of course, Keir wasn't there, and we sent our thoughts and our best wishes to him and his family, but he was ably represented by the Chester MP, Chris Matheson. Really, really good debate. Same with the deputy leaders, and my executive made their choices accordingly.
But you're pleased with the result yourself, I assume?
It's, I mean, I think Rebecca Long-Bailey is absolutely brilliant. She was brilliant on the day, very, very good. I think she's brave, courageous. Her capabilities are beyond doubt. And I think she's the one that can actually unite the party and take a message to not only our heartlands, which we need to win back, but to the rest of our nation. She's somebody who believes in lots of the radical policies that have been developed over the years, but she has something else as well. She wants to talk to the aspirational views of ordinary people. You
talk, understandably, about the importance of the heartlands. The Guardian did a big survey of Labour leaders in all of those seats where Labour had a terrible, terrible election, and the people who were on the front line of that awful defeat. And they quoted many of them who are not pro-Rebecca Long-Bailey. Let me just read you Julie Dore, who's the Sheffield City Council leader. She says, "I do not want a continuity Corbyn candidate. It was the most disastrous result ever. And we can't just change the face, change the name, change the gender maybe, and just continue and do what we've done before." She's the kind of person the Labour Party should be listening to.
The Labour Party will listen to its members. Of course, when Julie says she doesn't want a continuity Corbyn candidate, she didn't want Corbyn as a candidate. And there's lots of these leaders who are anti-Corbyn, and so, of course, they'll try to stick Rebecca with the same tags, and that's deeply unfair of them.
So if it's unfair, where are the areas where Rebecca Long-Bailey disagrees with Jeremy Corbyn?
Well, you should bring her on your programme and ask her. I
was asking you as her great supporter. She's coming on soon.
Well, because she is an individual completely different from Jeremy Corbyn. And I
Except she agrees with all his policies.
I don't know that she agrees with all his policies. I think she agrees with the radical nature of the alternative that Labour has offered or offers the electorate. But she'll have her different views about what her priorities are.
So why is she better than Keir Starmer, for instance?
Well, of course, you're dealing with, and it's the same for the deputies, we only have one choice. And it's about trying to make a judgment call on who can unite the party, who can take that message back to our heartlands and indeed to the rest of the nation. And it's a judgment call. And my union believes Becky is the person to do that.
And you really believe that Richard Bergen is better than the alternative candidate?
Well, of course, I have to say, all the calibre of the deputies was first class. I'm delighted that we have such talent in our party.
Angela Rayner is one of the most charismatic figures in the Labour Party.
I agree, and Angie was excellent, first class. And of course, that's a debate. You can only choose one. My executive decided to choose Richard, and that's where we stand. But Angela is an exceptional candidate, and I'm sure she'll do particularly well in this campaign.
One of Rebecca Long-Bailey's key policies is open selection, what we used to call a mandatory selection of Labour MPs, which means every Labour MP before an election has to ask for their job from their local constituency party. Now, Lisa Nandy has said that she would rather be talking about deselecting or getting rid of Tory MPs than Labour ones, and it is certainly a recipe for endless argument inside the party. Why do you support that?
Well, to be honest, Becky gave a brilliant answer on Friday at Unite. She basically said having open selections stops the internal fights and arguments that can occur in order to get a trigger ballot. For example, at the moment, all Labour MPs could be up for election if there's a trigger ballot. By having an open selection, and that trigger ballot goes on forever, having an open selection means everybody knows they're up for accountability. I've never shied away from accountability. So I think it might help.
Okay. Final question. A lot of this election for the trade union movement was about fighting what you feared would be Boris Johnson's shredding of union laws, etc., after Brexit. Now he's won this huge majority. Is there anything at all that Unite or the union movement can do to stop what's coming?
Well, obviously we can appeal to the government to make certain that they treat workers and their trade unions with respect. I'm not sure what the Prime Minister will do. I've asked to meet him, and indeed you're speaking to Stephen Barclay, somebody who I have a relationship with. We'll be dealing with the government, and we need to work cooperatively together in order to improve productivity, defend workers' rights, not attack them, and make certain that the economy moves forward. We still have to deal with the trade deals, which I'm particularly concerned about. So working with trade unions would be a clever move by the Prime Minister. If he decides to take on the trade unions, then I think it'll be a fundamental mistake for him.
Len McCluskey, thanks very much indeed for talking to us today. David, my